A financial crisis is hitting British state pensioners living abroad, with many waking up to find their pension payments short by £470. This isn't just a simple error, it's the harsh reality of a government policy enforced by the Department for Work and Pensions, DWP, that has left a staggering number of retirees without the annual increases they deserve. This so-called frozen pensions rule impacts around 453,000 pensioners who've opted to spend their retirement outside the UK. For those residing in countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and parts of the Caribbean, the lack of an annual pension increase has resulted in stagnant incomes for years, even decades, as the cost of living continues to rise. While the UK government raises state pensions for residents within the country and in some foreign nations with reciprocal agreements, this does not extend to all. The fundamental issue lies in the choices these retirees made or, in many cases, had to make regarding their living situations. In Canada alone, over 100,000 British pensioners are feeling the pinch. These individuals, who faithfully contributed to the national insurance system throughout their working lives, are now denied the annual pension boost simply based on their postal code. Edwina Melville Gray, the chair of End Frozen Pensions Canada, is among those advocating for change, highlighting the blatant injustice of this policy. She points out that wealthy figures like former Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, who recently entered Canadian politics, are unlikely to feel the financial burden of a frozen pension. In stark contrast, ordinary retirees are left in the lurch. For many, their UK pension is a lifeline, essential for meeting rent, buying food, and covering basic healthcare costs. Without annual increases that reflect inflation, their purchasing power erodes year after year, trapping them in a cycle of poverty. One particularly poignant example is 100-year-old Anne Pukeridge, a relentless campaigner for fair treatment of pensioners abroad. She candidly shared her struggles, stating, "I can't remember the last time I bought anything new. I have to limit even essential purchases to charity shops or second-hand markets. Social activities, like dining out or going to the cinema, are luxuries I can't afford. Even Christmas and birthdays, once joyful occasions, now serve as reminders of what I've lost." Her statements reveal the emotional toll that financial insecurity can inflict, particularly on the elderly who dedicated their lives to contributing to society only to find themselves fighting for survival. When pensioners like and share their stories, they represent countless others who suffer in silence, often isolated from family and neglected by the very system they helped to build. John Dugwide, chair of End Frozen Pensions International, boldly described the situation as an outright scandal. He views Anne's story as a painful symbol of how outdated and flawed policies are failing vulnerable pensioners. Dugwide expressed cautious optimism about recent political shifts, especially with Mark Carney's election as Canada's new Prime Minister. He believes this could lead to renewed diplomatic discussions and perhaps pressure the UK government to reconsider its stance. He emphasized that the cost of lifting the pension freeze is negligible compared to other budgetary concerns. In a landscape where trade talks and international relations take precedence, resolving this issue should be a straightforward matter. Yet, the UK government remains unyielding. A spokesperson for the DWP reiterated their long-standing position, claiming that while they acknowledge that people retire abroad for various personal reasons, the pension rules have been transparent for years. They argue that the policy is long-standing and has always been communicated openly. However, for those affected, this response does little to alleviate the reality of a declining quality of life. The truth is that this situation isn't a minor oversight or temporary measure. Pensioners moving to non-reciprocal agreement countries immediately experience a freeze in their pensions, which stay at the rate it was when they left the UK or when they first began receiving it abroad. Over time, this leads to a significant reduction in real income. A pension that may have been modest but manageable 2 decades ago is now worth considerably less, thanks to inflation and escalating living costs worldwide. These aren't isolated instances. This issue impacts a vast portion of the British retiree population. Many moved abroad to be near family, seeking a more favourable climate for health reasons, or due to personal circumstances beyond their control. Punishing them financially for their geographical choices has left many feeling abandoned by the nation they once served. Advocates argue that addressing this issue is not just fair, but essential. In a time when governments emphasize fairness, inclusion, and caring for the elderly, maintaining frozen pensions feels hypocritical. It implies that a British pensioner's contributions are valued differently based on where they live. As another winter looms, with rising fuel bills and soaring food and medicine costs, hundreds of thousands of elderly Brits overseas face horrific choices. Should they skip meals to pay for heating? Should they forego medical appointments due to transport costs? Should they avoid social gatherings because they can't afford to go out? These are not the golden years anyone envisions, yet they are the harsh reality for too many. This is far more than a policy issue. It's about dignity, fairness, and honoring the commitments made to those who dedicated their working lives to the UK. The time for half-hearted measures and vague promises has passed. The voices of Anne Pukeridge, Edwina Melville Gray, John Doug Wyde, and the countless others they represent deserve to be amplified. They deserve justice. More importantly, they deserve to live their final years free from financial anxiety. If this situation resonates with you, or if you have loved ones affected by the frozen pension policy, spread the word. The more people who understand, the stronger our collective push for real change can be. Let's ensure these pensioners are not forgotten any longer.